Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be focusing on numbers in JavaScript. So to get started, if you go ahead and go into your project folder, if you go ahead and go into the 16-numbers folder, and then in the start subfolder, open up main.js. And then in your browser, if you can go ahead and open up the index.html page in the start subfolder, you should see numbers on the web page once the file is open. So we have worked with the number data type in JavaScript a little bit so far. However, we have not done a deep dive into JavaScript numbers. So in our previous lessons, we've seen that we can create a variable and assign a number to it by using the var keyword. So we do var, I'm just going to do num equals 0. And this is one way you can create a variable. It stores a number value. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this to a let. So in addition to using an integer for your value, you can also use decimals when you create your number. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a console log here on num. And then I'm going to go ahead and do num equals 1.333. And we'll go ahead and copy our console log statement and place it below num. So we'll go ahead and save and refresh our page. You'll see we do have two different numbers pointed to our console here. So we have a regular integer and then our floating point number here. So both of these are acceptable ways for creating your numbers. Another way to create numbers is if you need to create a extra large or extra small number, you can write your number in scientific or exponent notation. So for example, we can do num equals 1, 2, 3, 4 e to the fifth. And if we go ahead and copy our console log statement, we can see that this is a valid number that gets outputted to our console. I'm just going to copy these lines here and place them down below our decimal section. So now that we've seen a few different ways that we can create our number values and store them in a variable, I want to go ahead and take a look at some of the methods that are available to the JavaScript number. So the first method that's available is the toString method. So as we discussed before, JavaScript will treat data primitives as objects when you want to use a method or a property on that variable. So to use the toString method, we can use our number variable and then call toString. So we're going to go ahead and set number equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what we'll do is we'll do console.log and we'll do num.toString, and we'll go ahead and not pass any arguments. So if we go ahead and save and refresh, we should see we get our string value here. And then let's go ahead and copy our console log statement here and place it below. And what we should see is that our original value does not change. So similar to our methods for our string data type, this returns a new value and it doesn't actually affect the original variable. So just so you're aware, the toString method can take an argument that is a radix. And this is used for when we output the number, we can choose the base that the number is outputted in. When we don't provide this argument, base 10 is used. You can choose between base 2 to base 36 when you want to output this as a string. So the next method we're going to look at is toExponential. And this method will also return a string. And what it'll do is it's going to go ahead and round our number and write it as exponential notation. So what I'm going to do num. I'm going to go ahead and set it equal to 10.567. And then we'll go ahead and do console.log num toExponential. And we'll go ahead and copy that line. And then here I'm going to go ahead and pass 2 as an argument. So if we can save and refresh, we can go ahead and see the results of this method. So by default, if you do not pass an argument to the toExponential method, it will not round your original value at all. It'll just go ahead and write it as exponential notation. If you do pass an argument, then JavaScript's going to go ahead and round to that number of characters behind the decimal point. So you'll see that we have our 10.56, and so because the decimal comes up 1, this will be our second value behind the decimal, and so we rounded it up, and that's why we have a 6 now. So the next method we're going to take a look at is toFix, and this method will go ahead and return a string, and what it's used for is it's used for taking a number and writing it with a specific number of decimal places. So if we want to go ahead and see it in action, let's go ahead and do a console log. Let's go and do num.toFixed. And we'll go ahead and copy this line. And this time we're going to go ahead and pass an argument. And we're going to go ahead and pass in 0. So if we go ahead and save and refresh, we can go ahead and see the results of our method. So by default, if you do not pass an argument, then this method will go ahead and return an integer value. So you'll see our value up here got rounded up to 11 because we have 10.5. And it's the same as if we do pass 0 in for the number of decimal places that we want to round to. So what we can do is let's copy this line and let's go ahead and change this to a 2. And if we go ahead and save and refresh, we can see the result. So now we round to 2 decimal places. So you'll see we have 10.57 and we round to that location. So one thing to note is if you do choose a decimal location that's longer than our current value shown here, what JavaScript will do is it'll go ahead and place zeros in that location until we have that specified length. So you'll see we have 3, 6, 9 decimal places after our decimal point. So our next method, toPrecision, is very similar to toFix. It will also return a string, and it will take our number and write it with the specified length. Alright, so what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and copy these console log statements. Let's go ahead and place them here. And what we're going to do is we're going to change it to change toFix to be toPrecision, and we'll take a look at the results. So one thing to note is the toPrecision method expects a value between 1 and 100 for the argument. So if we go ahead and run our code as is right now, we should get an error. So just for example, we save and refresh our page. We do get an uncut error because our argument is not between 1 and 100. So we're going to go ahead and change the 0 to 1. So if we go ahead and save and refresh, we can see our results. So if we go ahead and compare our results to what was returned for toFix versus toPrecision, you'll see that there is some differences in what's actually being logged here. So by default, when we do not provide an argument to toPrecision is just going to go ahead and return the whole number as the string. So that's why we have the 10.567 here. When we do specify an argument, toPrecision is going to count those positions before your decimal place and after to return that value. So you'll see that's why we have 1 and then E plus 1, because we start at our first digit and then that's the first value that we have. And that's why when we specify 2, now we have 11. So just as a recap, toFix, when you go ahead and do your rounding, it starts after the decimal, so that's why we end up with these longer values, these extra zeros, and toPrecision always starts at the beginning digit. So that's why it starts before the decimal, and then we don't have as many zeros here in our line. So finally, the last methods I want to take a look at are global methods that can be used for converting variables to numbers in JavaScript. These are number, %, and %. So these 3 methods, you can pass a JavaScript variable to it, and it will go ahead and try to convert it to a number. So just for example, if we do number, and let's go ahead and pass in a string, and we'll just do 30. And we'll go ahead and do 35, and we'll do number, and then let's pass in a string that's not just digits. So we're just going to do num, and then what we'll do is we're just going to go ahead and do num equals, and let's go ahead and add a console log so we can take a look at these values. So we go ahead and save and refresh. You'll see that our string 35 gets converted to the number 35, and because our string here can't be converted to a number, it becomes not a number. Alright, and so our next method, %, will take a string and it's going to try to convert it to a whole number. So for example, let's go ahead and copy these lines of code here. We'll place them here, and we'll go ahead and change this to %. And we're going to go ahead and do 35.5. We'll change this to % as well. Let's go ahead and save, and we'll see our results. So you'll see that even though we pass the string here that has a decimal, JavaScript goes ahead and returns a whole number. So that's why we have 35, and there is no rounding, so that's why we get just the 35. And same thing, because this cannot be converted to a number, we return not a number. So our last method, parseFloat, will also take a string as an argument, and it's going to go ahead and return that value as a number, but it will also go ahead and return decimal points. So if we go ahead and copy this block of code here, let's go ahead and change this to parseFloat, and we can go ahead and see our results if we save and refresh our page. So you'll see now here our number has our decimal point, so 35.5, and the same thing, because this can't be converted to a number, we get nan.